We have come together today to bring to bear the outraged and dedicated voices of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people and other fair-minded people who are with us on one of the most important moral issues of the day for our community: the right to join with others in contributing our talents, skills, and expertise to this nation's workforce. We're here today to demand that Congress pass the Employment Non-Discrimination Act without delay. This press conference is actually part of a week of national actions on ENDA. Despite a record number of sponsors and endorsements for passage of this landmark civil rights legislation, ENDA remains locked in committee as the clock winds down on the opportunity to act in this Congress. The good news is, after many years of our organizations and others working together, crisscrossing the aisles of diverse points of view, the House of Representatives stands poised to pass historic employment protections for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people for the first time in our nation's history. Every one of our organizations and others have had a hand in this, for this day has been decades in the making. Federal protections for lesbian and gay workers was first introduced as a part of a comprehensive bill outlawing discrimination against lesbian and gay people in housing, employment, and public accommodations in the Equality Act of 1974, introduced by Representatives Bella Abzug and Ed Koch. 20 years later, the comprehensive bill was set aside for one that was hoped to pass quickly: a streamlined Employment Non-Discrimination Act put forward in 1994, which has been introduced in every Congress since then except the 109th. So in many ways, the LGBT community and our allies have been educating, lobbying, organizing, strategizing, and waiting patiently for basic employment protections for 36 years. 36 years. That's a full work-life cycle for a generation of LGBT workers, and in fact, for many people in this room, that's more years than perhaps some of us have been alive. We are at the end of our patience. In this Congress alone, we have organized over 200 constituent Hill visits to members of the House and the Senate, 1,300 LGBT volunteers and our straight allies, friends, and family called 36,000 constituents in key districts, resulting in over 30,000 calls to members of Congress. In local efforts, we have made close to 100 in-district meetings, again to strategic members of Congress. We have made tens and thousands of phone calls and sent countless letters and emails in an effort to educate members of Congress and pass this legislation. We have done our work. We have provided the numbers and the stories, and we have endured as we've watched thousands of LGBT workers lose their foothold in a struggling economy. Not because of downsizing or poor performance or closed businesses, but because of prejudice, because of malice, and because there are no institutional consequences to arbitrary and unethical behavior by individuals or businesses who would exclude LGBT people from the basic tenets of our great democracy. So today, with us having done our work, and we will continue to do that work, Congress must now step up to its responsibility, to fully accept its charge, to serve its constituents, to step up to its moral obligation to preserve the integrity of the very fabric of our nation by providing an accessible workplace to all people in this country, regardless of sexual orientation or gender identity. They must pass ENDA now. We want to extend our gratitude to champions on this bill: Speaker Pelosi, Congressman Barney Frank, Congresswoman Tammy Baldwin, and Congressman Jared Polis, who lead the LGBT caucus, and all who have helped and worked to get ENDA so close to the finish line. Today, we call upon the leadership to now move this bill forward, crossing the finish line to end discrimination in the workplace. There are some wonderful advocates you will hear from today, and one who was not able to make it, but was invited, Frank Kameny. Many of you in this community in Washington, D.C. know him as well as around the country. He was a founding board member of our organization and a giant in the modern LGBT rights movement. Frank was one of our fiercest advocates for equality beginning in 1957, when as a Harvard-trained astronomer and veteran of World War II, he refused to name his gay colleagues in a closed-door meeting with federal officials. Frank was summarily dismissed from a job he was eminently qualified, and he loved it. Purely on the basis of his sexual orientation, he was dismissed. Frank's letter of termination deemed him, quote, unsuitable for federal employment. Rather than be cowed by the aggressive discriminatory acts of the government he'd risked his life to secure, Frank made it his life's work to protect the rights of any and all who would find themselves in such a room. Dr. Kameny celebrates his 85th birthday this week and was not able to join us. He's preparing himself for the later work festivities, and we respect him taking care of himself. And in his regrets added, in a remarkably understated way for Frank Kameny, to say that I am a supporter of ENDA is an understatement.